Daisy Celeste Gilmore will go missing between July 7th and 11th, according to General Hospital teasers and updates, and the newborn's kidnapping will rock the Port Charles neighborhood. This week's GH trailer shows a panicked Sasha Corbin asking for her daughter in the nursery, where she notices an empty crib. Sasha hurries out of the room in the preview, only to run into Michael Corinthos while telling her baby daddy that someone has stolen their child. This is every parent's greatest nightmare, and poor Sasha has already been through enough baby-related stress to have to deal with something like this. But here she is. Fans of General Hospital are aware that someone has been watching Daisy since her infancy, so it's hardly surprised that an abduction plot is unfolding. These weekly teasers can be deceptive, so it's possible that someone simply scooped up the child to console her if she was sobbing, or to return her to Sasha. But, given that someone has been monitoring both the baby and Michael's children via the windows, you never know. Daisy could be kidnapped. There is a good likelihood that someone has kidnapped Daisy, which would disrupt not only Sasha, Michael, and the Quartermaines, but also the entire community. When Sasha was given the wrong baby at the hospital, the serial indicated that Daisy might have been kidnapped. This is when the stalker narrative began, and fans believe Willow Tate may be involved. Willow's mental health suffered significantly after she lost custody of Wiley and Amelia Corinthos a few weeks ago. She had a severe breakdown in court following the decision, and has been behaving weirdly ever since. General Hospital spoilers. Daisy's kidnapping sends shockwaves through Port Charles. Willow may have did. There has been widespread conjecture that Willow has dissociative identity disorder, as stalking a kid contradicts her persona as a mother and nurse. Willow was at the hospital when Daisy was with Sasha, and she is quite familiar with the Q mansion, therefore watchers of GH suspect she is Daisy's stalker. She helped deliver the child when Sasha went into labor, while testifying in Willow and Michael's divorce and custody hearings. Furthermore, Willow may feel justified in kidnapping Sasha's daughter, given the death of her own children. However, it is becoming increasingly evident that Willow is a suspect. Eventually, Daisy's stalker may be anyone, including an old rival of Sasha from her scamming days. Jen Sidwell was aware of Sasha's pregnancy, and has yet to forgive Holly Sutton for tricking him. Because Daisy is her grandchild, he may have hired a hitman to locate and steal the youngster. There are several potential suspects. General Hospital teasers indicate that Sasha's world will be turned upside down when she realizes her child is missing. However, with Michael's power, influence, and resources, as well as the super spy Scorpio family's dedication, Daisy will eventually be returned to her mother. According to General Hospital teasers, Lulu Spencer's life in Port Charles is unraveling as her son, Rocco Falconeri, confronts the horrific truth about his birth origins, which are linked to Britt Westbourne's embryo theft. Brooke Lynn Quartermaine's angry research into Rocco's origins, intended to harm Lulu for mistakenly revealing Giovanni Gio Palmieri as her son with Dante Falconeri, has backfired, leaving Rocco doubting his parents' love and honesty. As Lulu fights to keep her family together, will Rocco's concerns sever their link, or can she regain his trust? Rocco's world is rocked by Britt's secret. Rocco's revelation of Britt's ploy kidnapping Lulu and Dante's embryo has disturbed his sense of identity, compounding his anguish from Lulu's coma and Sam McCall's death, as well as discovering he has a new brother he never knew about. All of this familial turbulence is bad for the soul. His suspicions may originate from the belief that Lulu and Dante hid the facts to protect themselves, not him. Brooke Lynn's irresponsible snooping has fueled Rocco's distrust, leading him to question whether his parents' love is genuine. Will his hurt drive him away? Or can Lulu and Dante demonstrate their love in a real heart-to-heart? But let's be honest, this will be a greater challenge for Lulu than Dante. GH spoilers. Lulu's desperate fight to save her son. Lulu's spiraling world, already stretched by Dante's rage at the Gio disclosure, meets a new problem as Rocco withdraws. Her attempts to explain may falter if Rocco perceives her as deceitful or aggressive in any way, such as hitting Brooke Lynn in the face. Dante's dual loyalties, balancing Gio and Rocco, will unintentionally raise strain. General Hospital spoilers. Lulu and Dante's world spiral as Rocco begins to doubt his parents' love. If Lulu and Dante are unable to reach Rocco, his doubts may lead him to rebel or seek leadership from someone else. Can they rebuild their relationship? Or will Rocco's distrust destroy what's left of them? A family on the verge of collapse. Rocco's misgivings may reverberate throughout the family for some time, putting a burden on Dante and Lulu's co-parenting and Joe's fragile integration, which is currently stalled. If Laura Collins or Olivia Quartermain intervene, they may be able to bridge the divide, but Brooke Lynn's actions risk escalating the situation. The fans are going crazy online with some pleading, "Don't GOR Rocco," and fearing he would never forgive his parents. Will Rocco's concerns about Dante and Lulu's love devastate their world, or will they strive to prove their devotion before their tie is severed? Keep checking back with us, Monet. July 7, 2025. Vaughn makes a pass on Emma, Gio questions Carly about Sunny, and Sidwell informs Anna that Sunny is chasing Natalia. In the previous GH recap, Rocco confronted Lulu about Britt, while Laura wanted answers from Sunny regarding the mafia conflict. Emma joins Gio at the pool and asks whether he had the night off. He would work non-stop if he could. He's still concerned about Sunny. He wants to know who he truly is. Emma proposes that he ask someone. Joss is sitting in a corner reading about Dalton when her mother appears and enthusiastically tells her about the forward tonight. She looks forward to spending time with her. Joss believes the fire reminded her of the fragility of life and the value of family. They discuss about what the family has gone through. Carly feels grateful that they are secure right now. Joss stares at Vaughn as he removes his shirt. Her mother notices and suggests she go chat to him. When she joins Vaughn, he encourages her to pretend their kiss never occurred. They plan to distract Emma with animals. Vaughn tells her he lost his childhood dog. She's not sure if this story is true, but she knows Emma will love it. She says that she is the finest way to set Emma off. They initiate a struggle for Emma's advantage. Joss tells Vaughn they're done and storms out. Instead, she took medications at least twice with an alcoholic chaser. For that matter, the liquor could have been contaminated. Will it be revealed that Sunny's new guards are two Judas who work for Sidwell, and that Sidwell took a double shot to guarantee he was the only bad guy in town? They both had access to Natalia's apartment when she wasn't there, and they might easily have poisoned the liquor or pills. The air in Port Charles was dense with anxiety. The city's heartbeat halted as word spread of Natalia's unexpected and untimely demise. At first, it appeared to be a freak accident, a sudden collapse followed by a failed resurrection attempt. However, when whispers of autopsy results began to circulate, the tale changed. People were no longer discussing a tragedy. They were chatting in hushed tones about murder. And at the middle of it all stood Sonny Corinthos, his name once more entwined in darkness. Sonny had been accustomed to distrust. His past left a permanent target on his back. He had lost track of how many times people expected the worst from him. But this was different. Natalia Rogers, a rising celebrity with no known opponents, was found lifeless under circumstances that demanded for answers. Sonny had only recently began to mingle with her in public. Rumors of a possible romance had begun to circulate, even though both denied it. She had recently been seen with him at a number of high-profile events, including benefits, charity auctions, and private dinners, which sparked a frenzy in the tabloids. Sonny was familiar with how Port Charles operated. People were always looking for a story, and they always wanted a villain. In a town founded on secrets and power, Sonny was a natural fit. But as Natalia's autopsy revealed symptoms of foul play, lethal chemicals in her bloodstream, inconsistent bruises on her wrists, defensive marks that didn't match the timeline, Sonny understood that someone was rewriting the story of her final hours. And yet, they were writing him in as the murderer. Dante Falconeri was caught between two difficult responsibilities. As a detective, his responsibility was to find justice no matter where the trail led. As Sonny's kid, his instincts told him to protect. But Natalia's body did not lie. There were indications of a fight, and the toxicological report aroused concerns. Barbiturates mixed with something synthetic and obscure, not readily available yet traceable with enough effort. The connotation was clear. This was not an overdose. It was staged. As Dante reviewed the security tape from the last time Natalia was seen alive, he discovered gaps. A camera in the hotel corridor that should have filmed her room entrance had gone dark for a 20-minute period. Another image showed her departing the elevator with a hooded figure trailing several paces behind. The figure was slender, tall, and walked purposefully. Not Sonny. However, once the press got hold of the case, none of that mattered. Before any charges were brought, the headlines were rife with accusations. Is Sonny Corinthos a murderer in disguise? Mob boss tied to Natalia's shocking death. The narrative was established in stone long before the reality could be revealed. Carly was the first to storm into Sonny's penthouse, her rage mixed with anxiety. "You need to get ahead of this," she urged, her voice crisp and determined. "Someone is setting you up, and if you don't figure out who, you'll go down for it." Sonny's expression was unreadable. "They've been attempting to put me away for years. Nothing new." "This is different," Carly replied. "This is not about RICO accusations or opposing families. This is murder. Of an innocent woman with no ties to life." He knew she was correct. Natalia had a pristine reputation, honed over years in the public eye as a community advocate and small business owner. She had no enemies. She didn't even know who Sonny was when they met. That was what pulled her to him. His quiet strength and aloof attractiveness. They had not even kissed. Now she was dead, and Sonny was all over the footage from earlier that day, buying her flowers, walking her to her car, standing at the door with what appeared to be affection in his eyes. The coroner's report was damning. Natalia was given a highly particular medicine that is rarely shown in autopsy records. Its presence suggested planning. Someone wanted her gone, and they wanted it to appear that Sonny was behind it. The only question was why. Jason Morgan returned to Port Charles quietly and unseen by most. Sonny had no idea he was returning until Jason walked into the warehouse at night and asked a simple question. "You do this?" Sonny stared at his best friend without flinching. "No." Jason nodded once and handed Sonny a file. "Then we'll start here." Video surveillance footage from a downtown pharmacy. "Someone purchased the compound 2 days before Natalia died. We paid in cash. They disguised their face. But we only obtained partial prints." As they studied the footage, Sonny began to discern the outlines of an unexpected plan. The individual in the footage was systematic. Professional attire includes gloves and a hoodie, with the head lowered. Not someone who acts on instinct. This was a hit. But why frame Sonny? Ava Jerome's name began to come up in conversation. Ava had every right to despise Sonny. Their alliance had been weak for years, held together only by mutual respect and the children they shared. But recently, tensions had risen. Rumors circulated that Natalia was interfering with Ava's attempts to rebrand her gallery as a non-profit arts coalition, which Natalia openly opposed. There were whispers that Ava was afraid Natalia would reveal financial irregularities. But even Sonny couldn't believe Ava would go so far. Nonetheless, he had to pursue every clue. Ava was not the only one with something to gain. Michael, Sonny's son, had returned to the orbit of corporate battle. Natalia had recently made a significant donation to a pediatric research wing named for Michael. If her death drew attention to that donation, or if her murder harmed Sonny's credibility in family court, Michael stood to profit. The betrayal was too horrible to understand. Sonny needed proof. He tasked Brick, his long-standing IT guru, with a deep dig. "Don't leave any screen untouched. Find out who purchased that compound. Find out who was in that hallway when the cameras went down. I want names." Nina Reeves stood silently devastated. Natalia was one of the few women Nina considered a friend in town, someone without a long past, someone pleasant and straightforward. And now she was gone. Nina wasn't sure what to believe. Her marriage with Sonny had barely survived the SEC debacle. Now this. Willow discovered more than just pain when she paid Nina a visit to express condolences. She discovered resolve. Nina wasn't about to let this go. "If Sonny is innocent, we have to prove it," she replied, clutching Willow's hand. Not just for him, for Natalia. Willow was skeptical. As much as she disliked admitting it, Sonny's hands were rarely clean. Her relationship with him had been fraught with tension and dread, and now she had children to think about. What impact did Sonny's ability to do this have on her family? The entire autopsy report was leaked 2 days later. It verified Dante's fears. Natalia's death was manufactured. Her body had been transported after death. There was evidence of restraint, soft ties that resembled silk or nylon. None of it pointed directly at Sonny, but it was evident that someone intended it to. Diane Miller took over as Sonny's attorney, accompanied by an investigation team that began dissecting every detail of the case. The idea was to poke holes, to identify the flaw. And they did. An anonymous call came into the PCPD tip line. The voice was garbled, but the message was clear. "You're looking at the wrong Corinthos, Michael." The following days were packed with monitoring orders, private meetings, and strategic silence. Sonny began unraveling the conspiracy piece by piece. Someone had gone to tremendous measures to obtain the complex, wipe recordings, duplicate his moves, and connect his presence to Natalia's last moments. Whoever it was, they had access. They had money. And they knew how Sonny worked well enough to frame him. Then the break occurred. Brick linked the pharmacy purchase to a burner phone. That phone rang twice near the docks and once near Michael's office building. The second ping, which occurred just hours before Natalia's death, was less than 3 blocks from Sonny's condo. Whoever held the phone was tracking him. "I'm following him, making sure the timing is right." Dante presented the proof to the DA, but the office did not take it seriously. "Circumstantial," they stated. "We need a face, a name, a confession." So Sonny laid the trap. He held a memorial for Natalia at her favorite gallery. The entire community was invited, including the journalists. He ensured that all suspects were present. Michael, Ava, Nina, Carly joined him, keeping a close eye on the crowd. Throughout the celebration, Jason and Brick slipped into the upstairs surveillance room. They used rigged facial recognition software to scan the audience. If the compound's buyer was around, he or she would know. They found a match. But it was not Michael. And it was not Ava. It was Mason Gatlin. A name long lost beneath the ruins of bygone vendettas. Mason had a hatred against Sonny, and a long history of undercover operations. He'd vanished after an unsuccessful kidnapping attempt years prior. Nobody had seen him since. Until now. The pharmacy footage was matched with a grainy photograph of Mason entering the gallery. That was him. He had arranged the setup. He'd framed Sonny. And he'd killed Natalia. But by the time Dante and Jason dashed downstairs to face him, Mason had vanished. Slipped out through a side exit, leaving just the aroma of perfume and a taunting note in a floral arrangement that read, "Close but not close enough." The story did not end there. Natalia's memory will not rest until her murderer was brought to justice. And Sonny realized that his true fight wasn't only to clear his name, but to complete what someone else had begun. Because framing him was just the start. The air in Port Charles was heavy with tension. The Corinthos estate, once a bastion of strength and tranquility, had devolved into a hive of worry. Natalia Ramirez, a fiery spirit with a tangled past, had been discovered dead from what appeared to be an accidental overdose. But nothing is ever that straightforward in a place like Port Charles. Within days, rumors circulated like wildfire that this was not an accident. This was murder. Even more combustible, Sonny Corinthos was being framed. The autopsy sparked the first fractures in the story. While the initial police report indicated that Natalia had mixed prescription medicines and alcohol, the toxicology testing revealed a different narrative. The medications in her system did not correspond to her prescriptions. In fact, one of the compounds discovered had been banned for almost a decade. It was a fast-acting paralytic that was used once in clinical settings before being forbidden due to a spate of deaths in the early 2000s. That revelation alone sent shockwaves through the PCPD, but when Jordan Ashford presented the information to Anna Devane, their eyes met with the same suspicion. This wasn't a coincidence. Someone had gone to great lengths to make it appear as if Natalia had overdosed, and they had done it successfully. The scene was overly tidy. And dispute had occurred in Natalia's flat, as shown by overturned furniture, a broken wine glass, and a mystery phone that had been wiped clean. There were no fingerprints except Natalia's, and one fragmentary print that lab results showed was Sonny's. That was all the evidence the authorities required to bring Sonny in for questioning. The town erupted. People were divided. Half believed Sonny's reputation had finally caught up with him. Others stood behind him, declaring it was just another smear campaign by someone out to destroy the Corinthian Empire from within. Carly was one of the first to defend him in public. She marched into the PCPD with a furious determination and a warning. If they were going to bring Sonny down, they needed more than just a smeared fingerprint and circumstantial evidence. But the pressure increased. Diane Miller took over as Sonny's legal counsel, and immediately began demolishing the chronology that the DA's office had established. Nonetheless, the case against him thickened when Trina Robinson discovered a surveillance tape from a neighboring cafe, time-stamped on the night Natalia died, showing Sunny leaving her building. Worse, someone had tampered with the tape, corrupting half of it and removing a critical hour from the file. Trina wasn't convinced Sunny did it, but she couldn't explain the gaps. Jason Morgan first kept his distance, but following Carly's heartbreaking plea, he returned to help investigate Natalia's past. And what he discovered dramatically changed the narrative. Natalia had been meeting with someone in secret for several weeks. Bank records revealed huge wire payments from an unknown shell business. Jason traced the shell back to an offshore account associated with one of Sunny's old foes, Renzo Maddox, who was assumed dead in an explosion in South America years ago. If Renzo was alive, it meant two things. Someone was pulling strings behind the scenes, and Sunny was in far greater danger than anyone realized. Meanwhile, Christina was distraught. She and Natalia had grown close as they discussed their problems with complicated families and rebuilt their lives. Christina refused to accept her father could be responsible, but her doubts grew. She began to recall small details, conversations Natalia had dropped, minor anxieties she'd expressed that didn't make sense at the time. Christina informed Alexis, and the mother and daughter launched their own inquiry, attempting to piece together Natalia's final days. At the same time, Ava Jerome made herself known. With her usual clever charm, she promised Sunny her backing while sowing suspicion in the press. She had a vested interest in seeing Sunny fall, but she also wanted to assist safeguard the family reputation, especially since Avery was involved. Ava's relationship with Sunny was tense, complicated, and potentially the key to everything. Michael Corinthos, on the other hand, found himself embroiled in a moral conflict. His faith in Sunny had never entirely healed following what had happened between Nina and Willow. Faced with the idea that Sunny had slain a lady Michael knew to be loving and kind to his brothers, he began to question his father's ability to be so cruel. Willow sought to keep their family together and urged him to be fair. But Michael couldn't ignore the evidence stacking up. Brooke Lynn Quartermain revealed further truths when she acknowledged to overhearing Natalia argue with someone on the phone the week before her death. The voice sounded familiar, but she couldn't identify it. First, she assumed it was Dex Heller. But Dex had been in Florida visiting his mother that week, and his alibi was confirmed. Brooke Lynn continued to investigate since something didn't feel right. Then came an unexpected twist. Detective Chase discovered that Natalia had filed a sealed restraining order months before, using an identity. Only through a legal loophole were they able to trace it back to her. What's the name on the order? Drew Kane. Drew, fresh from a business vacation in Belize, appeared stunned when approached. He denied knowing anything about it. However, the deeper the PCPD dug, the murkier his ties got. Natalia had previously worked for a company Drew had acquired. He never told anyone about their brief romantic relationship. Worse, some deleted messages between them were only partially recoverable. Natalia had threatened to reveal something. Drew had done everything he could to remove it. The spotlight has changed. Sunny remained under suspicion, but Drew emerged as a suspect with a legitimate reason. But the issue remained. Why frame Sunny? Curtis Ashford began working alone, motivated by instinct and a desire to keep his town secure. He has seen this type of takedown before. He began to wonder who would benefit from eliminating both Sunny and Drew at the same time. That's when he discovered something chilling. Natalia had been seen with a man in the week preceding her death, someone who matched the description of a hitman used by the five families. Curtis followed the trail and confirmed it. Natalia was attempting to extort someone with ties to the mob. She'd gotten too deep. The narrative was now coming into focus. Natalia had found something explosive. She'd attempted to use it to defend herself, or even to purchase a new life for herself and Christina. But someone else arrived first. Someone who desired to keep the truth hidden, and possessed the ability to influence every piece on the board. All roads now led to the man no one had suspected, Martin Gray. The suave lawyer had been flying under the radar for months, keeping his hands clean and his involvement in Valentine Cassidy's old accounts hidden. However, as Lucy Coe asked more questions, Martin became irritated. Natalia had formerly been his customer, and she had access to classified documents revealing criminal dealings between several influential persons in Port Charles. It was enough to shatter reputations, upend relationships, and destabilize civilizations. Martin had motivation, access, and resources. Worse, he had a list of people who agreed to lie for him. As the town reeled from the ramifications, Anna and Jordan were forced to reconsider their inquiry. Sonny remained technically a suspect, but public pressure began to shift in his favor. Protesters gathered outside the courthouse, demanding justice for Natalia and the truth, not an easy scapegoat. Carly, enraged that Sonny had been subjected to such an ordeal, redoubled her efforts to find the true perpetrator. During a fundraiser at Metro Court, she confronted Martin and accused him of plotting a frame-up. Martin maintained his composure, but his smile faded just enough for Nina to notice. Nina, who was still suffering from losing both Sonny and her place in the family, suddenly found herself in a position of authority. She launched her own inquiry, utilizing her media resources to delve into the darkest aspects of Natalia's past and the web she was caught in. What she discovered astounded her. Several confidential data Natalia had saved on an encrypted device and emailed to herself hours before her death. The documents revealed financial crimes, money laundering, and off-the-record interactions between Martin and an unidentified offshore bank account. The ultimate blow came when Gio, Brooklyn's younger brother, discovered a burner phone among Natalia's stuff concealed in the deception office attic. The texts on the phone revealed a series of extortion requests addressed to Martin Gray, as well as one final disturbing message. "If anything happens to me, it won't be quiet." Natalia was aware she was in danger, and she'd attempted to warn everyone. Now Port Charles was at a crossroads. The court of public opinion had moved. While Sonny had not been officially exonerated, he was no longer the monster everyone feared. Drew, under fire, had withdrawn from ELQ. Michael started mending fences with his father. Willow reached out to Christina for help. Ava stood by, one eye always observing. But the most significant alteration occurred when Anna Devane filed a warrant for Martin Gray's arrest. The legal community exploded. Half of the town was stunned. The other half claimed they'd always sensed something was wrong. And as Martin was brought away in handcuffs, his countenance remained strangely calm, as if he still had cards to play. The Natalia Ramirez case shook Port Charles to its core. Lives were shattered, truths revealed, and alliances strained. But in the end, justice did not come easily. This never happens in Port Charles. Because just as the sun rose over the water and many believed the worst was done, a single package was delivered anonymously to Jordan Ashford's office. There was a snapshot inside. Natalia stood with a lady no one recognized, holding a file called Project Cassandra. At that point, everyone realized that the murder was only the beginning. Sonny stood alone in the dim light of the gallery after the memorial crowd had thinned. His expression was unreadable, jaw clenched, hands trembling ever so slightly. Natalia's portrait hung near the entrance, framed in white roses and surrounded by flickering candles. The memory of her laughter haunted the room like a ghost. For Sonny, this wasn't just about clearing his name anymore. It had become personal. Someone had taken away a kind, genuine soul and tried to make it look like he had done it. That injustice lit a fire in him unlike anything he'd felt in years. Jason rejoined him silently, a subtle nod indicating that security teams were sweeping the area. But Mason had vanished into the night. Brick was already tracing the next digital breadcrumbs, and Dante was rallying the department to get a formal warrant. Sonny knew it was only a matter of time before they found Mason, but what would justice look like then? He wasn't sure the system would handle it, and if it didn't, Sonny would. This wasn't just about vengeance. It was about truth, about redemption, and most of all, about making sure Natalia's death wasn't just another tragedy lost in the chaos of Port Charles.